Hey sun rays, welcome back to another video. If you guys are new here, thank you so much for joining me. As you could tell from the title, in this video I'm going to be explaining to you guys what a birth chart is and what each house in that birth chart means. A birth chart is a snapshot of the sky when you were born. So your birth chart will have 12 different houses, and each house is ruled by a planet and it has a different meaning to it. Your birth chart will have 4 major points on it. On the left side, you will have your ascendant or rising sign. Right across on that horizon to your right side, you will see your descendant. Above, the highest point of your birth chart is called the midhaven or the MC. And the bottom, very below it, is your IC. So your first house is the house of self. It is the first expression that you give people when they see you. It defines your outlook on life and it defines your appearance. So for example, I am a Scorpio rising. When people first meet me, they don't see me as my sun sign, which is the persona that I present to the public, but they see me as a Scorpio rising. They see me as very intense. I mean, I wear black, so I can come off very intense or mysterious to people at first. If you are a Aries, because Aries naturally rules this first house, if you're Aries rising, you can come off as very bossy. If you had a Leo rising, you would probably have big hair and be all flashy and things like that. You would appear that way to people. So that's a little bit about the first house of self. So our second house, which is naturally ruled by Taurus, but it will be something different in your chart. Keep that in mind. It's something different. But naturally, the second house is ruled by Taurus. And this defines our values, our material possessions, how we make money, our skills, and our self-worth. For example, if you have Venus in the second house, you make money. You may make your money through being married or through some sort of relationship or partnership. You may value beautiful things. You may value dressing yourself up and things like that. The third house is naturally ruled by Mercury. And the third house represents our communication. It represents language. It represents the mind, memory. It represents short-term trips. It represents vehicles, think cell phones and things like that. It represents social media or media in general. It represents our siblings and early learning, high school and down. So our fourth house represents our comfort. It represents our roots, our ancestors, our mother. It represents our upbringing. It represents nostalgia. It represents real estate. It represents our parents and also our home life. And the fourth house is naturally ruled by the moon. The moon typically represents the more nurturing parent. All right, guys, we're at the fifth house, and the fifth house is naturally ruled by Leo. Fifth house rules romance, children. It rules creative self-expression. It rules creativity. It also rules fun. So that's the things you could think about whenever you're studying your fifth house. So the sixth house is naturally ruled by the sign Virgo. And when we think of sixth house, we think of our daily routine. We think of organization. We think of our co-workers, our pets. It also represents health and wellness. So that's a quick one on the sixth house. Seventh house is very simple, and it's ruled by the beautiful planet Venus and Libra. So the seventh house is the house of relationships. It's the house of marriage, partnerships, and just any type of relationships, including businesses. The eighth house is naturally ruled by the planet Pluto and the sign Scorpio. The eighth house represents death, occult, intimacy. It represents inheritance, other people's money, taxes, and things of that sort. So when you think of the eighth house, think of those things. Also, with the eighth house, I want to add this in here. It's also the house of transformation and psychology also. All right, guys, so now we're at the ninth house. The ninth house is naturally ruled by the sign Sagittarius and the planet Jupiter. When we think of the ninth house, we think of higher education, higher learning. We think of religion, think of history, culture, traveling, philosophy, and things like that. Guys, we're now at the 10th house. Whenever it comes to 10th house, this house is naturally ruled by the planet Saturn and the sign Capricorn. When we think of the 10th house rules our public persona, the side of us that we put out to the world. It represents success, our career. It also represents authority and government too. So whenever you think of the 10th house, keep those words in mind. All right, guys, now we're at the 11th house. The 11th house is naturally ruled by the sign Aquarius and the planet Uranus. When you think of the 11th house, it talks about community, friendships, it talks about technology, it talks about our ideas and aspirations. It also talks about humanitarian efforts and things of that nature. Guys, now we're at the final and last house, which is the 12th house. The 12th house represents spirituality. It represents our subconscious mind. It represents the hidden. It represents our dreams and our deep-seated emotions. It also talks about our hidden enemies. It also can talk about prisons and hospitals and things of that nature. All right, guys, so that's it. That's all I have. I hope you kind of got a quick idea of each one of the houses and what it represents. I didn't go into deep detail, but I gave you enough to get you started. This is Astrology 101, and I hope you were able to gain some insight from the information that I have given you. I want to know your sun, moon, and rising. Go ahead and comment that down below, and I will see you guys on the next one.